Part 23. The Prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 221. Shen Shuwei took a sip of the ginger syrup and said, "Sooner or later the establishment of a crown princess is something we cannot control." Having said that, concubine Su said angrily, "Chang Liangdi's mother clan went to battle to kill the enemy, and my father and brother also went to battle to kill the enemy. Her family took advantage of everything." Shen Shuwei looked at concubine Su's unwillingness, because Chang Liangdi had the queen's backing. I have watched 2 or 3 similar palace battle dramas, in which the queens support their own family members to become crown princes and queens. What's more, the queen always wanted Chang Liangdi to be the crown princess. Concubine Su was so righteous that she saw Shen Shuwei still drinking tea calmly. "Aren't you anxious? If Chang Liangdi becomes the crown princess, she will have great power. Then our good days will come to an end." Shen Chu said lightly, "Whether Chang Liangdi can be the crown prince or not is not up to us, so why worry about it? That's it, if Chang Liangdi is the crown princess, how can I fight against her in the future? Thinking about it makes me depressed." Concubine Su became angrier as she thought about it. Shen Shuwei couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. She still liked watching concubine Su quarrel with others. "Are you still laughing?" Concubine Su stared at her belly. Shen Shuwei noticed concubine Su's eyes and subconsciously held her stomach and asked her, "Oh, why are you looking at my belly?" Concubine Su hated the fact that iron cannot be made into steel. "Tell me, how come you have been sleeping for so long without any movement? If you are pregnant with a dragon heir, you can still fight for it even if you don't have the support of your mother clan." Shen Shuwei was a little embarrassed. She had just gone to bed. How could she have a child so soon? This month's menstrual period has arrived. When she mentioned menstruation, she touched her belly and felt a little uncomfortable. Concubine Su said something before she left, "You should try your best. If it doesn't work, go see the imperial doctor. Don't let Chang Liangdi get an advantage." Chengzi came over with snacks and heard concubine Su's words. She used to dislike concubine Su, but now it seems that although concubine Su has a bad temper and loves to quarrel with others, she is not so mean. "My lord, concubine Su is so anxious as if she is not pregnant." Shen Shuwei smiled when she thought of how concubine Su wished she could stuff a baby into her belly just now. Chengzi said with a smile, "By the way, little master, everything is fine in Xiun Pavilion. The chickens and ducks are very fat. I just found out that an egg was laid yesterday." Shen Shuwei couldn't sit still when he heard this. "Really? We've already laid eggs. If we have 2 more, we can hatch chicks. By the way, make a nest with cotton, put the eggs in it, and put the hen in it." My slave knows." Chengzi finished what she was doing and went to Xiun Pavilion to tell her about hatching the chicks. "When I came back, I took the fabric and went to the garment bureau again." As soon as he walked to the door, he saw Hui Xiang from Xinlan Hall, walking towards the garment bureau. Chengzi knew that Chang Liangdi was relying on the queen to become the crown princess, and they both disliked each other. She walked straight in, found Mr. Hua, and explained her purpose. "The weather is getting hotter and hotter. I took some thin materials and made 2 clothes for my little mistress. As long as there is money in the palace, everyone is very well informed. Who is favored and who is not favored, everyone is like a mirror. Chengzi belongs to Hehuan Palace, and His Highness is always on the go, so he is naturally favored." Father-in-law Hua said with a smile, "Miss Chengzi, no problem, do you want it urgently? The Xie family will have someone rush to make it right away." Chengzi smiled and said, "You should rush out as soon as possible. My little master will wear it in a few days." Hua Gong responded with a flattering smile, "No problem, I guarantee that the embroidery ladies will make it within 5 days." Hui Xiang came over with a few pieces of cloth and nudged Chun 11 with her elbow. Changzi was caught off guard and took 2 steps back. When she looked up, she saw Huaixiang walking confidently in front of her and raising her chin. Flower father-in-law, my little master also wants to make some clothes and wear them in a hurry. Father-in-law Hua had long heard that Chang Liangdi was going to be promoted to crown princess, and he immediately said with a flattering smile, okay, Miss Huaixiang, don't worry, we will make it in a few days. Changzi took 2 steps forward, nudged Huaixiang with her elbow and snorted. The fragrance is overwhelming. Changzi looked at Eunuch Hua, it's embroidered with peach blossoms. My master likes peach blossoms. Father Hua smiled and said, Miss Changzi, the clothing bureau has been busy making clothes for the young masters of the palaces these days. Can you please delay for 2 days? Changzi asked dissatisfiedly, why? I was obviously the one who came first, why do you want me to slow down? Huaixiang said proudly, what's the use of coming first? Can your little master be compared with my little master? Changzi gritted her teeth and almost yelled, but she endured it. Chang Liangdi would become a princess in the future, and it would be bad to avenge her privately. Father-in-law Hua accompanied him and said with a smile, Miss Changzi, wait for 2 days, and the Xie family will send someone to send it over. Then please hurry up, Eunuch Hua. My little master is in a hurry to wear it. After Changzi finished speaking, she turned and left. Huaixiang smiled proudly, followed, and glanced at Chun 11 disdainfully, my young master will soon become the crown princess, and my master will take priority in everything. Do you understand? What's so great about being a princess? If you have the ability, let your highness go to Xinlan Palace. After Changzi finished speaking, she snorted and turned away. Being ignored, Huaixiang stamped her feet, what the hell, my little mistress will become a princess to make you look good. Changzi returned to Hehuan Hall. Although she felt unhappy, she didn't tell Shen Shuwei for fear that she would feel uncomfortable. Shen Shuwei finished her dinner early, and when she had nothing to do, she took out her paper and pen and placed them on the desk. She hadn't painted for a long time, so she practiced her pen today. After sharpening her pencil, she began to paint seriously. Sketching requires patience, and it can also divert attention very well. Shen Shuwei's patience is especially good when it is good, and she can't sit still for a moment when it is not. There was incense in the room, which helped to calm the mind. As she painted, she got interested and forgot the time. Changzi came in to remind her, my lady, the prince probably won't come tonight, you should rest early. Shen Shuwei said without turning her head, I know, I will rest later. After Changzi left, she saw the prince coming, and a look of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she bowed. Xiao Jinyan motioned her to leave. Changzi left happily, and she was also proud in her heart. Although the prince's consort was not my lady's, it was enough for the prince to treat my lady well. She would not be afraid of being bullied if she was favored. Xiao Jinyan walked in and saw Shen Shuwei sitting in front of the desk. He walked over slowly, lowered his eyes, and his sight fell on the paper. It was a half-finished painting. The painting was of a man. Except for the eyebrows and eyes, the lines of other places were very rough, but it can still be seen that the man has a slender figure, leaning in the carriage, holding a book in his hand and reading it seriously. The eyebrows and eyes look very familiar. Xiaoju, who are you drawing? Good evening, my dears. There are more updates. Please vote, please vote, please vote. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 222. Shen Shuwei was absorbed in painting when a pleasant and familiar voice suddenly came from above her head. She was startled and looked up to see Xiao Jinyan standing behind her, and his eyes were looking at her sketch. Being caught painting by the model herself, this was very embarrassing. Your Highness, when did you come? She stood up to greet him and silently put the drawing board on the desk. "Your Highness, I didn't realize that you like painting so much." Xiao Jinyan glanced at the drawing board on the desk. He remembered correctly that the painting method was exactly the same as the one last year, which he had never seen before. "I'm just practicing to kill time." Shen Shuwei smiled and put away all the paintings and pens. Xiao Jinyan asked, "Why don't you paint anymore?" Shen Shuwei said guiltily, "It's late today and I should rest. I will paint again tomorrow when I have time." Xiao Jinyan still remembered the time when he came. Usually Shen Shuwei would have fallen asleep at this time. "That's right." Shen Shuwei secretly breathed a sigh of relief and hid the painting tomorrow. "Your Highness has been so busy these days. Have you had dinner?" Yes. Xiao Jinyan came over right after finishing his work. Fortunately, he was just next door, a few steps away. Shen Shuwei said, "I'll help your Highness undress." Xiao Jinyan, "Yes." Shen Shuwei took 2 steps forward and undressed Xiao Jinyan in a familiar way. When she took off her coat and underwear, she pulled open the collar and saw the marks on her neck. Her hands stopped. She always remembered that she beat Xiao Jinyan when she was drunk. She offered to apply medicine to him several times, but Xiao Jinyan refused. She thought Xiao Jinyan was thin-skinned and was embarrassed to be beaten by a woman, so he refused to let her apply ointment. Now it seems that it is not the case. This mark does not look like a punch, but like a strawberry. Not only a strawberry, but also a tooth mark. This position must not have been bitten by Xiao Jinyan, because it is out of reach. Shen Shuwei thought for a while. Xiao Jinyan didn't seem to stay in other palaces these 2 days, because Lu 11 came to report 2 days ago that Xiao Jinyan was busy dealing with the corruption case of County Magistrate Luo and had no time to go to other women. Xiao Jinyan found that Shen Shuwei was hesitant. "Xiaoju, what's wrong?" He looked down along Shen Shuwei's line of sight, and when he saw that position, he guessed what she saw. Shen Shuwei pointed at the strawberries tremblingly, and looked up at Xiao Jinyan. "Your Highness, this is not what I did, right?" Xiao Jinyan asked back, "What do you think?" Shen Shuwei wanted to deny it, but Xiao Jinyan's eyes made her immediately say from the heart, "It seems that there is no one else except me." Xiao Jinyan snorted, "Is it self-aware? Does it hurt?" Shen Shuwei regretted it after asking. "It has been a few days, and it must not hurt? But then again, it has been a few days, and the marks are still so obvious, which also shows that it was very intense at the time." Xiao Jinyan looked at Shen Shuwei steadily, and her mind unconsciously recalled her bold actions and her kitten-like begging for mercy. "If this palace says it hurts, do you have a solution?" Shen Shuwei nodded, "Yes." Xiao Jinyan suddenly looked at her expectantly, "Really?" Shen Shuwei looked at the strawberries, grabbed his shoulders with both hands, tiptoed, and gently kissed them. When Shen Shuwei tiptoed closer, Xiao Jinyan lowered his eyes and kept looking at her until the gentle kiss fell. With a warm breath, he was stunned for a long time. Shen Shuwei looked at Xiao Jinyan nervously, "Is it okay?" "Not enough." Xiao Jinyan's eyes darkened, and he uttered 2 words softly, then leaned over to hold her sideways and strode towards the bed. The next second, Shen Shuwei guessed that she was going to serve the emperor again. She grabbed Xiao Jinyan's hand and looked at Xiao Jinyan with her beautiful starry eyes. "Your Highness, I..." The last 2 words were whispered into Xiao Jinyan's ear. Xiao Jinyan paused and calculated the time in her mind. It was also this time last month. She thought of the severe stomachache she had last month. "Does your stomach hurt this time?" Shen Shuwei nodded, "It hurts a little, but it's better than last time." "I'll cover it for you." Xiao Jinyan held her in his arms, put his big hand in, and put his hot palm against her stomach. It was cool there, and it was indeed better than last time. Shen Shuwei lay there obediently without moving, but the hot temperature on her stomach made her unable to ignore it. At the same time, the pain seemed to disappear. Covering the stomach is still effective. She looked up at Xiao Jinyan, her eyes fell on his neck again, and she saw the Adam's apple. She curiously reached out and touched it, only to see it rolling up and down, and felt a little strange. Xiao Jinyan's breathing became heavier. Don't move. Oh, Shen Shuwei obediently withdrew her hand and saw that there was a strand of hair hanging on her body that belonged to Xiao Jinyan. She reached out and took it and put it in her palm to play with it. Xiao Jinyan said, I just came back and heard about the appointment of Chang Liangdi as the crown princess. I have no intention of doing so. Shen Shuwei paused her playful movements. I know. Xiao Jinyan lowered her eyes and looked at the person in her arms, sighing in her heart. She didn't even have the right to appoint anyone as the crown princess. Chang Liangdi used her uncle to put pressure on her, and her mother was biased towards Chang Liangdi. This matter was a bit difficult to handle. Xiao Jinyan did not speak out his worries. He knew she was asleep by listening to her even breathing. He also closed his eyes, but did not fall asleep, because once he fell asleep, his hands would leave his stomach. The next day, after Xiao Jinyan woke up, he gently put the person in his arms on the bed, and then got up and put on his clothes. After getting dressed, Xiao Jinyan was about to leave when he saw the drawing board on the desk. He paused, then turned to the desk, picked up the drawing board and turned it over, and saw the painting on it. The eyebrows and eyes clearly looked a bit like himself. Is Shen Shuwei drawing herself? Xiao Jinyan slightly raised the corners of his lips, looking forward to the finished product. He put the drawing board back to its original place and turned to leave. Today was sunny. Shen Shuwei asked someone to move the rattan chair to the yard. She lay on the rattan chair, and her stomach didn't hurt so much. It should be because Xiao Jinyan covered it with his hands last night. Sichuan chased the little gray rabbit early in the morning, like a conscientious trainer, trying to spur the students. Concubine Su and Tao Chenjui hurried over early in the morning. Shen Shuwei looked at the two people walking hurriedly, and her voice was lazily, why are you in such a hurry? Concubine Su brought a small stool and sat next to Shen Shuwei, saying happily, I brought good things. If Shen Shuwei hadn't seen Concubine Su with empty hands, she would have almost thought it was something delicious. But she was still a little curious, what good things? Look, Concubine Su took out a piece of paper from her sleeve pocket and couldn't wait to open it to Shen Shuwei. Look, this is the prescription I asked the imperial physician for yesterday, a prescription for praying for a child. The imperial physician said that many concubines are using it. Tao Chenjui also said, try it first. If it doesn't work, I'll ask my father to ask for a prescription outside and send it to the palace. There are more updates. Please vote. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 223. Shen Shuwei thought Chengzi was worried about being pregnant, but now looking at Concubine Su and Tao Chenjui, they were worried about being pregnant. She couldn't help but ask, why are you so anxious to get me pregnant? Hey! We can't get pregnant even if we want to. His Highness doesn't even come to our place, so where is the chance? After Concubine Su finished speaking, she grabbed Shen Shuwei's hand and said excitedly, you are different. Your Highness keeps running there every 3 days. There is a high chance of getting pregnant. As soon as she gets pregnant, the Queen's first grandson will be from you. If she comes out of her belly, she will have the opportunity to compete with Chang Liangdi for the position of Crown Princess. Tao Chenjui nodded vigorously, what Concubine Su said makes sense. Shen Shuwei was also a little reluctant to accept the kindness, so she took the prescription from Concubine Su. She took the prescription and looked at it carefully, frowned, and looked at Concubine Su with confusion. This is not the prescription you are asking for. Concubine Su looked confused. but the imperial doctor said that this is the prescription for having a baby. Shen Chu shook his head slightly. No, this is a recipe for false pregnancy. It can make you have delayed menstruation and have symptoms of nausea, which is also the symptom of happiness. Concubine Su said angrily, then why did the imperial doctor tell me that this is a prescription for seeking a child? Isn't this a lie? Shen Chu nodded slightly. I'm afraid I just lied to you on purpose. It's impossible for the imperial doctor not to know what the medicine above does. Tao Chenjui just thought about it carefully and realized that there was something fishy about this recipe. I'm afraid this matter is not simple. Could it be that someone did it on purpose? Concubine Su immediately became angry when she thought that someone was deliberately teasing her. I went to the imperial doctor to settle the score, but you dared to tease me. Tao Chenjui grabbed Concubine Su and said, this matter cannot be made public. If someone knows about it and bites you, you won't be able to explain it with 100 mouths. When Concubine Su heard what Tao Chenjui said, she was also shocked. The consequences of being caught pretending to be pregnant to gain favor would be very serious. She said unwillingly, then what should I do? Why can't I let others fool me? Shen Chuwei asked, did you say that this recipe for a child was given to me? Concubine Su shook her head, I didn't say who it was for, and the imperial doctor didn't ask. I probably thought it was for myself. Tao Chenjui analyzed, if you want to catch the mastermind behind the scenes, you must have evidence to prove that the imperial doctor is lying. Shen Chu thought for a while and said, there is only one way to prove that the imperial doctor is lying, and that is to pretend to be pregnant. Let the imperial doctor diagnose your pulse, and let him personally tell you that you are pregnant. Concubine Su suddenly realized, oh, I understand, then I will pretend to be pregnant and let the imperial doctor diagnose my pulse. Tao Chenjui reminded, then your highness must stay at your place, otherwise it will be easy to expose. Concubine Su got angry when she mentioned this, what can I do if your highness doesn't come? I took the initiative, but in the end I was either caught by snowballs or burned with tea, so I won't go. Tao Chenjui spread his hands, then there's nothing we can do. Concubine Su said unwillingly, then we can't let the imperial doctor go. Tao Chenjui comforted him, put away the prescription first, and then we can think about countermeasures. At this time, the study room of the prince's palace. Lu 11 opened the door and came in to report, Your Highness, Dr. Wen is here to see you. Xiao Jinyan said without raising his head, let him come in. Here after Lu 11 went out, Dr. Wen walked in not long after. Imperial Dr. Wen stepped forward a few steps and bowed in salute, I am here to see His Highness the Crown Prince. Xiao Jinyan raised his head and glanced at Dr. Wen, what's wrong with Dr. Wen? Imperial Dr. Wen lowered his eyebrows and nodded, back to your highness, Wei Chen accidentally bumped into Concubine Su at Imperial Hospital today asking Imperial Dr. Zhao for a prescription, but there was something wrong with the prescription that she was seeking. She felt something fishy, so she came here specially. Report. Xiao Jinyan frowned, can I ask for a recipe? Dr. Wen you said, what I heard is absolutely true. Xiao Jinyan snorted, what the hell is Concubine Su doing? What's the use of begging for a son if you don't have someone to sleep with you? Xiao Jinyan, Lu 11. Lu 11 strode in, my servant is here. Xiao Jinyan asked, what did Concubine Su do today? Back to your highness, I just went out and saw Concubine Su and Tao Chenjui going to the Hehuan Hall together. It seemed that they had something important to say Lu Zidao. When Xiao Jinyan heard that Concubine Su had gone to Hehuan Hall, her brows furrowed even more tightly. Could it be that she was looking for Xiaoju with a recipe for a child? When he thought of this possibility, Xiao Jinyan clenched the pen in his hand, Concubine Su, you dare to touch Shen Chuwei. He ordered in a cold voice, Lu 11, go next door and tell Shen Liangdi that I will come over for dinner. Here Lu 11 took the order and went to the next door. When they went there, Concubine Su and Taochenjui were still there, talking about something unknown. When they saw Lu 11 coming, they stopped chatting. Lu 11 glanced at Concubine Su calmly. Shen Liangdi, His Highness said he would come over for dinner tonight, so prepare early. Shen Chu said softly, I understand, thank you Eunuch Lu for reminding me. Then the Xie family will go back and resume their lives. Lu 11 glanced at Concubine Su again as he left. Concubine Su did not notice Lu 11's ambiguous gaze. She looked at Shen Chuwei and said, Look, His Highness is here again. Your chances of getting pregnant are very high. Work hard tonight and try to be the first to conceive His Highness's child, that is the eldest son. I will see what Chang Liangdi can compare with you. Tao Chenjui also clenched his fists and echoed, Shen Liangdi, come on. Shen Chuwei looked at Concubine Su and Tao Chenjui's expectant faces, and suddenly felt a little stressed. Neither she nor Xiao Jinyan were looking forward to the baby's arrival, but Concubine Su and Tao Chenjui were looking forward to it. It was as if she was pregnant, and they were the ones who were going to be mothers. Before dinner, Chengzi asked Shen Chuwei, My lady, the prince bullied you like that last time, I won't put salt in it tonight. Shen Chuwei looked at Chengzi in shock, how dare you not put salt in it? Chengzi straightened her chest, what's there to be afraid of? If the prince asks, I will say I forgot. Shen Chuwei gave a thumbs up, you are so brave. It happened several days ago, and Chengzi actually remembered it. I will go and make the prince's favorite dishes, one of which will not be put in salt. Chengzi chuckled twice and rushed to the small kitchen. Seeing that Chun Lai was serious, Shen Chuwei hurriedly called her, Chun 11, you must add salt, otherwise the food will be inedible. Chun 11 asked in confusion, why does the young lady protect His Highness so much? His Highness is bullying the young lady. Shen Chuwei paused and explained, of course I am worried that His Highness will be angry. He is so busy all day, and he finally has a bite of hot rice, but there is no salt. He will definitely be furious. Be careful with your little head. Chun 11 was frightened and just cooked seriously and properly. Shen Chuwei saw Chun 11 went to the small kitchen, and he should understand. At dinner, Xiao Jinyan came to have dinner as promised. Chun 11 placed the food on the table one by one. Good night, my dears. 8,000 words updated. Being cute and acting cute to ask for monthly tickets and recommendation tickets for encouragement. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 224. Shen Chuwei stood in front of the round dining table and subconsciously glanced at the steaming food on the table. Chengzi must have added salt, right? Xiao Jinyan hurriedly sat down at the table. Seeing Shen Chuwei still standing, he asked her to sit down as well. Xiao Jinyan looked at the food in front of him. Although he was a little hungry, he did not rush to pick up his chopsticks. Instead, he looked up at Shen Chuwei and asked directly, is there anything that Concubine Su came to Hehuan Palace today? Shen Chuwei hesitated a little, not knowing whether it would affect Concubine Su if she said it out loud. After all, she was also deceived. The crime of asking for a child and creating a fake pregnancy to win favor is very serious. Your Highness, Concubine Su came here for some things, but they have all been resolved. When Xiao Jinyan heard this, he knew that his guess was almost right, but Shen Chuwei didn't tell him the truth, which made him frown. If you tell me false and perfunctory words, what's the difference between that and not telling me? I want to hear the truth. Shen Chuwei looked at Xiao Jinyan in front of her with a serious face, and her little hands were clasping her fingers under the table. It felt like when the teacher asked about homework, she lied at home and was seen through by the teacher's sharp eyes. Your Highness, Concubine Su came to Hehuan Palace to give me a prescription for having a child. Her original intention was good. Your Highness, Concubine Su came to Hehuan Palace to give me a prescription for having a child. Her original intention was good. Your Highness, Concubine Su came to Hehuan Palace to give me a prescription for having a child. Her original intention was good. Your Highness, please don't be angry. Good intention, Xiao Jinyan sneered, do you know that there is a problem with the prescription for having a child? Shen Chu was stunned for a moment, then nodded. I carefully read the prescription and found that there is a big problem. The prescription cannot have a child, but can only create a false pregnancy phenomenon, making people mistakenly think that they are pregnant. However, concubine Su was deceived in a moment of anxiety. She didn't know that there was a problem with the prescription. Xiao Jinyan looked serious. How do you know that concubine Su has good intentions, and not deliberately giving you a fake prescription to frame you? In the palace, Xiao Jinyan has seen a lot of open and covered struggles for favor. Such tricks of framing people are endless and hard to guard against. Shen Chuwei explained, concubine Su doesn't have that thought. Xiao Jinyan asked back, how do you know concubine Su doesn't have that thought? Shen Chuwei explained, I have been with concubine Su for a while, and I don't think she has such thoughts. Xiao Jinyan stared at Shen Chuwei with a calm look. Shen Chuwei lowered her eyes and looked at the food in front of her. It was still steaming hot just now, but now it has even lost its heat. She looked up at Xiao Jinyan and reminded him, Your Highness, have dinner first. The food will not taste good if it gets cold. Xiao Jinyan paused, glanced at the food in front of him, and nodded, eat first, and we'll talk later. Shen Chuwei picked up the chopsticks and put a few pieces of braised pork in the bowl in front of Xiao Jinyan. Your Highness, eat more meat, you will feel better. Xiao Jinyan was amused, do you think I'm like you? Eating braised pork will satisfy you? Shen Chuwei asked curiously, then what will your Highness have to be satisfied? Xiao Jinyan's eyes paused. He now has money and power. After a few seconds of silence, he said concisely, be a wise monarch. Your Highness's ideals are lofty and arduous, while my ideals are so small that they can be ignored. Shen Chuwei said, picked up a piece of braised pork and stuffed it into her mouth, eating it very fragrantly. No matter how many times I eat it, I still think braised pork is very delicious. Xiao Jinyan looked at her with puffed cheeks and a satisfied look on her face while eating. He could not understand how a few pieces of meat could make one look satisfied. He picked up some braised pork and put it in her bowl. Since you like it, eat more. Shen Chuwei nodded vigorously and lowered her head to continue eating. Xiao Jinyan stared at her for a long time before lowering his head to continue eating the rice in the bowl. After dinner, Chengzi brought a cup of fresh tea in front of Xiao Jinyan as usual, and then left, not acting as a light bulb. Shen Chuwei sat obediently opposite Xiao Jinyan and told him in detail the ins and outs of concubine Su's prescription for seeking a child today. Xiao Jinyan paused while drinking tea, raised his eyes and looked at Shen Chuwei. Someone deliberately wanted to frame concubine Su, so he gave the recipe for a child. Shen Chuwei said, the recipe is obviously problematic, and the imperial physician cannot fail to see it. It is nothing but deliberate. Xiao Jinyan pondered for a few seconds, and a wise light flashed in his eyes, then find this person. Such a scheming person is kept in the East Palace. Today he will frame concubine Su, and tomorrow it will be Xiaju. He must not be kept. Shen Chuwei asked, did you let concubine Su fake pregnancy? Xiao Jinyan shook his head, no. Shen Chuwei looked puzzled, then how to catch him? Xiao Jinyan spoke out his thoughts one by one. Shen Chuwei was stunned, and couldn't help but secretly give a thumbs up. It would be a pity if Xiao Jinyan didn't go to the palace fight. Then why did you let me pretend? Xiao Jinyan raised his eyebrows, what do you think? Shen Chuwei said, I think your Highness's method is very good. Xiao Jinyan, you are always so talkative. Shen Chuwei smiled, it's not easy to be a salted fish. At night, Xiao Jinyan stayed overnight, just like last night, he held Shen Chuwei in his arms and covered her belly with his hands. Shen Chuwei had a good sleep, and after having skin-to-skin contact, she gradually got used to being held to sleep, and fell asleep in Xiao Jinyan's arms in a short while. Xiao Jinyan waited until Shen Chuwei fell asleep before falling asleep. The next day, when Xiao Jinyan was dressed and ready to leave, he thought of the painting, turned his head to look at the desk, and found that the drawing board from yesterday was gone. Probably because he was looking forward to the finished painting, but couldn't see it anymore, Xiao Jinyan felt a little itchy in his heart. Shen Chuwei called concubine Su and Tao Chenjui early in the morning and told Xiao Jinyan's method. Concubine Su clapped her hands and said, "This is a good idea. I want to see who wants to harm me behind my back." Tao Chenjui also nodded in agreement. Shen Liangdi has been in bed the most often and has never been pregnant. It is easy to believe that you are the one asking for a child. Shen Chuwei also thinks this method is good, but she needs a salted fish to act. She calls this a friendly appearance. Concubine Su said impatiently, "Then I will send Caixia to invite the imperial doctor now." Shen Chu said softly, "We can't do it now. We have to wait for a while to make them think that I have Yuxi's symptoms after taking medicine, otherwise it will be easy for people to suspect me." Concubine Su nodded when she heard this. "That's right, then just wait." 3 days later, the queen conveyed Xiao Jinyan to Fenji Palace. "Prince, the position of the crown princess has been vacant. I have discussed with the emperor for a long time and decided to make Chang Liangdi the crown princess and take charge of the trivial affairs of the East Palace for you. What do you think?" Xiao Jinyan guessed what the queen wanted to say on the way here. It seemed like she was asking, but in fact she was just informing him. "My father and my mother are far-sighted and considerate, but I feel that now is not the time to establish a crown princess." The queen said, "I know that you are worried about your luck. The emperor has asked Mr. Lu to watch the stars at night and find someone who can establish a crown princess. Good afternoon, kids. Acting coquettishly and cutely, please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 225. Because of the queen's concern, Xiao Jinyan said it very tactfully, "Mother, I think Chang Liangdi is not suitable for the position of crown princess." The queen frowned when she heard it. "Chang Liangdi is proficient in everything, and she is virtuous. What's wrong with her? You are marrying a crown princess, and you must consider all aspects. The crown prince should understand." Xiao Jinyan retorted, "Mother, if we talk about virtue, it must be Shen Liangdi." Before Xiao Jinyan finished speaking, the queen snorted, "What you said is inappropriate, but it's just an excuse. I know you love Shen Liangdi very much, but the crown princess can only be Chang Liangdi. As the crown prince, I don't need to say more." Xiao Jinyan pursed his lips tightly and had nothing to refute. This is the helplessness of being in the royal family. Whoever you marry must be considered whether it is useful to the throne. Coming out of Fenji Palace, Xiao Jinyan looked up at the sun above his head, but he couldn't feel its temperature at all. "Brother." When Xiao Jinyan heard the voice and looked, he saw his younger brother Xiao Jinyu walking towards him. His peach blossom eyes were full of smiles, bright and flamboyant. He suddenly envied his younger brother. He didn't have to fight. His mother would arrange everything for him without any worries. If he became the crown prince, the crown prince would not fall on his younger brother. His younger brother could be an idle prince. With him, no one dared to bully his younger brother. He was free and comfortable. Xiao Jinyu asked, "Brother, I heard that you want to marry Chang Liangdi as the crown princess, right?" Chang Liangdi entered the East Palace as a concubine, and as the crown princess, she was the main wife, and she needed to be married with the ceremony of the main wife. Xiao Jinyan said lightly. Xiao Jinyu sighed, "Why do you have to marry Chang Liangdi as the crown princess? Isn't my sister-in-law good?" Xiao Jinyan patted his brother's shoulder and walked away. Xiao Jinyu looked at the back of the crown prince brother leaving, sighed, and turned to enter Fenji Palace. The news that Chang Liangdi was appointed as the crown princess on the 15th of this month spread throughout the East Palace and the Imperial Palace. Chang Liangdi's Zinlan Palace was almost trampled. People came one after another to congratulate and flatter her. Sister Chang, congratulations. Su Chenjui smiled flatteringly. Chang Liangdi's lips curled up a gentle smile, and her eyes were filled with joy and pride that could not be concealed. The position of the crown princess was finally settled. In another 6 days, she would be the crown princess, the legal wife married in a formal ceremony, and the future queen. Just thinking about it made people excited. Huaixiang smiled smugly, "My lady, you have finally gotten what you deserved. When you become the crown princess, you will be in charge of all the trivial matters in the Eastern Palace. Let's see how concubine Su can still boss you around." Chang Liangdi touched her temples, and her smug tone unconsciously revealed, "Of course, I am the crown princess. What does a concubine like her mean?" Huaixiang looked at Chang Liangdi in the mirror, and praised while imagining, "When the 15th day comes, my lady will wear a red wedding dress, and she will definitely be the most beautiful among all the beauties, and she will be so beautiful that she will be beyond description." Chang Liangdi looked in the mirror, looking at herself in the mirror, with a beautiful face. If she wears a bright red wedding dress on the day of the crown princess, she will definitely be very beautiful. Hehuan Palace. My lady, it is a done deal for Chang Liangdi to be the crown princess. Although Chan 11 had never expected my lady to be the crown prince, she was still a little worried. Shen Chuwei had guessed it a long time ago, so she was not surprised. Chengzi comforted her, "It's okay, my lady. As long as His Highness pampers me, that's enough." Shen Chuwei stared at Chengzi for a long time. "Chengzi, I want to eat ice cream." No, Chengzi refused directly, packed up and walked out. Shen Chuwei pestered Chengzi to eat ice cream, and followed her from the house to the yard. "Chengzi, you see I'm so greedy, how can you bear it?" Chengzi sighed helplessly, "My lady, your period just ended today, can you wait for 2 more days?" Shen Chuwei said, "Eat a little, it won't be a problem." Since Chengzi learned everything, Shen Chuwei has become even lazier. If you want to eat something, just call Chengzi, you don't have to do it yourself. Chengzi was pestered and had no choice. "I really can't do anything with you, my lady." Shen Chu smiled and said, "Chengzi is the best." Chengzi sighed, "How could I have such a greedy master?" Concubine Su hurriedly walked in with a handkerchief, and the words came before she arrived. "Shen Liangdi, have you heard? The 15th is the day when Chang Liangdi is appointed as the crown princess." Shen Chuwei nodded, "I already know." Concubine Su stared at Shen Chuwei for a long time. "Why are you still so calm?" "I'm almost dying of anxiety." Shen Chuwei grabbed a handful of melon seeds and handed them to Concubine Su and asked, "Do you want to eat some melon seeds?" Concubine Su looked at the melon seeds in front of her, grabbed some, and ate a few of them irritably, and found that the more she ate, the more irritable she became. Chang Liangdi's mouth must be upturned to the sky right now. Shen Chuwei sat on a rattan chair, crossed her legs, and ate melon seeds. "What if it was you?" Concubine Su imagined it for a moment, "Then my mouth must be higher than Chang Liangdi's. The crown princess is the wife of His Highness, and she needs to be married in a formal way." I pointed at Chang Liangdi's forehead and scolded her, and she didn't dare to say anything. Shen Chuwei nodded in agreement. If Concubine Su was the crown princess, she might really point at Chang Liangdi's forehead and scold her. When she was a concubine, she didn't hesitate to scold Chang Liangdi and others. Little Rabbit came over to report, "My lady, Chang Liangdi is here." Concubine Su paused while eating melon seeds. "Speak of the devil will appear. Could she be here to intimidate us?" Then she said, "It is said that a new official will start with 3 fires when he takes office. He hasn't even taken office yet, but he has started with 3 fires." Shen Chuwei shook her head slightly, indicating that she didn't know. Concubine Su saw Chang Liangdi swinging her handkerchief from a distance, twisting her not-so-thin waist and walking towards her. She whispered, Chang Liangdi hasn't lost weight since she gained weight last time. Look at her waist, it's as thick as a bucket, tisk tisk. Shen Shuwei happened to see Chang Liangdi's waist, which was indeed fatter than before. After hearing concubine Su's words, she couldn't help laughing. Chang Liangdi was stunned for a moment when she saw Shen Chu smiled. Could it be that she didn't know that I was going to be appointed as the crown princess, so she could laugh? She won't be able to laugh later. Chang Liangdi held her temples, walked over slowly, and smiled. How is Shen Liangdi? Then she glanced at concubine Su, as if a little surprised. Concubine Su is here too. I was drinking tea and chatting with Shen Liangdi. What whined Blue Chang Liangdi, who never went out of the main door or the second door. Here, concubine Su couldn't change her temper for a while, and she directly said it. Chang Liangdi snorted in her heart when she heard it, and she would deal with you later. She glanced at concubine Su and finally fell on Shen Shuwei, with a smug look in her eyes. Sisters should have heard that I want to appoint a crown princess. I came out to walk around with the sisters more, so that it will be convenient for me to manage the Eastern Palace in the future. Good evening, my dears. Please vote. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 226. Chapter 226. You have such a heavy appetite that you are afraid that His Highness will do something stupid. Chang Liangdi is not a domineering person. She has been silent for too long. She finally waited for the exact day to appoint the crown princess, so she couldn't wait to let everyone know. Among them is Shen Shuwei, who is the most favored. What if His Highness favors you again? The crown princess is mine, and the child I give birth to will be the eldest son. Shen Chu nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. Concubine Su also nodded to express her understanding. She was just quick to talk and couldn't help but remind her, it's only a few days until the 15th day. Chang Liangdi has to work hard to lose weight. Otherwise, the wedding dress will not be easy to wear, especially the red one, which will make you look fat. There will be so many of them. Look, tisk, tisk, it's very bad. She said it on purpose, you deserve to be pissed off. Shen Shuwei couldn't help laughing again after hearing this. The red color did make her look fatter. The smile on Chang Liangdi's lips froze. That time, she became ill because of following the trend of gaining weight. As a result, when she wanted to lose weight, it was very difficult. It took more than a month to lose a little bit. Whether I eat well or sleep well these days is all because I gained 10 pounds of fat. It was because of the appointment of the crown princess that she was brought back to life, but concubine Su said it in public, which would make anyone angry. Concubine Su, I'm not telling you, you are also a concubine. You should be more careful when speaking to avoid flashing your tongue. Concubine Su raised her handkerchief to cover her mouth and laughed twice. I have been like this since I was a child. I have a very sharp mouth. Chang Liangdi, don't be surprised. Chang Liangdi suppressed the unhappiness in her heart. There will be many opportunities to settle accounts in the future, so I will let you jump a few times first. What's wrong with me? Your father didn't teach you well. Someone will teach you in the future. After Chang Liangdi finished speaking, she looked at Shen Shuwei, took 2 steps forward, and said with a smile on her lips, we are both sisters serving His Highness. Even if I am the crown princess, I should get closer to him so that we can better serve him together, Your Highness, right? Shen Chu blinked his big eyes twice and said, Chang Liangdi, let's serve His Highness together. The taste is too strong and I can't do it. Chang Liangdi was stunned for a moment. Concubine Su covered her mouth and snickered, it depends on whether His Highness is willing to serve together. Chang Liangdi, don't you think so? Chang Liangdi felt that Shen Shuwei and concubine Su were humiliating her. She clutched her handkerchief and glanced at concubine Su with her chin raised. Concubine Su, I am afraid that your highness has never been to your house. Yuxiang Palace. When concubine Su heard this, she was so angry that she never came before she came. She said it as if you were sleeping with her. Shen Liangdi, Su's concubine, please remember to come and watch the ceremony when she is crown princess. After Chang Liangdi finished speaking, she walked out of Hehuan Hall with her proud chin raised. Concubine Su stamped her feet angrily and flicked her handkerchief. What the hell? Even before the day when the crown princess was appointed, she started to put on airs. Shen Shuwei sat back on the wicker chair, took a few sips of hot tea. Chengzi brought the prepared ice cream. When concubine Su came, she could hear her irritating voice in the kitchen, so she also prepared a portion for concubine Su to relieve the heat. Master, the ice cream is ready. Chengzi placed one bowl in front of Shen Shuwei, and handed the other bowl to concubine Su. Concubine Su, please use ice cream. Concubine Su also ate ice cream twice. When she saw the ice cream, she put aside the unpleasant things she had just done. She took the small bowl from Chun 11's hand, picked up the small spoon inside and scooped out a spoonful of ice cream. Shen Shuwei took a bite of the ice cream, which was cold and sweet with a sweet taste. People say that eating sweet will make you feel better. This sentence is not true at all. Not only that, concubine Su's anger also dropped a lot after eating ice cream. After Xiao Jinyan finished handling official duties today, when he saw Lu Zheyan, he directly brought him over and said, "Are you doing this called personnel affairs?" Lu Zheyan expressed that he was very wronged and aggrieved. "No, Your Highness, I have already declined twice. Any further refusal will arouse suspicion." Xiao Jinyan was really powerless this time. It felt like when he first became the prince, he had no control over anything, and he didn't even have the right to choose who to be his concubine. To put it bluntly, he is a coward. "Is there anything you can't do until I come back?" Lu Zheyan said, "His Highness will be gone for a month, and even the humble ministers can't wait." Xiao Jinyan frowned and took Lu Zheyan to the East Palace. Lu 11, prepare some food and wine. Lu 11 worked very quickly, and within a short time, several plates of side dishes and 2 bottles of wine were ready. Lu Zheyan carefully sat down at the dining table because he knew Xiao Jinyan would be in a bad mood. Xiao Jinyan was indeed in a bad mood and had nowhere to vent but to drink. Xiao Jinyan drank 3 glasses of wine in a row and suddenly asked, "Do you think there is still room for maneuver in this matter?" Lu Zheyan asked cautiously, "Your Highness is preventing the appointment of the crown princess." Xiao Jinyan did not answer but asked, "What do you think?" Wei Chen feels that the position of prince is not easy to come by. Don't force him to stop him. It will only be counterproductive. Lu Zheyan originally wanted to remind Xiao Jinyan not to be anxious, as fate has its own destiny. Xiao Jinyan raised his head and drank the wine in one gulp, then suddenly stood up and strode away. Lu Zheyan sat here alone for a while, stunned, and he quickly chased out, "Your Highness, don't do anything stupid." As a result, he tripped over the threshold and fell straight out. Ah! Wei Qi happened to pass by and saw the person flying towards him. After a closer look, he found that it was Mr. Lu. He had quick eyes and quick hands and caught the person. Lu Zheyan thought he would knock out a few teeth this time, but the expected pain did not come. When he opened his eyes, he saw Wei Qi, who was no less than seeing a savior. "Thank you, Brother Wei." Wei Qi put him down and said, "Why is Lord Lu walking like a child?" Lu 11 just walked in from outside and saw Lu Zheyan almost fell to the ground. He covered his eyes and did not dare to look because it was too painful. Until he was fine, he asked, "Lord Lu, why are you in such a hurry?" Lu Zheyan patted his chest and said, "I'm afraid that His Highness will do something stupid." Lu 11 pointed to the next door and said, His Highness is going to the Hehuan Palace. Lu Zaiyan looked at the next door and realized, I thought too much. Asterisk. After Shen Shuwei finished her dinner, she took out the drawing board and continued to paint the unfinished painting. She was idle and could not finish a painting in one go. It took many days to complete a painting. The teacher who taught sketching back then said that if you rely on painting to make a living, you will probably starve to death. Shen Shuwei didn't comment. Fortunately, she didn't make a living by drawing. After 3 times of drawing, the facial features of the character were completely drawn, and then the hair was drawn. The portrait sketch she drew was very close to the real person, even the eyes and eyelashes were vivid. The hair was clearly visible and flowing, just like the real thing. When Xiao Jinyan came, he saw Shen Shuwei sitting in front of the desk with a drawing board in her hand. He knew she was drawing again. He walked over slowly and stood behind Shen Shuwei. His eyes fell on the drawing board. He thought he would never see the painting again, but he didn't expect to see it again today. There are more updates. I'm begging for monthly tickets and recommendation tickets by acting cute, my dears. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Iyun Si. Chapter 227. The facial features have been completely drawn, and the hair is almost finished. It can be said that you can tell at a glance that this is him sitting in the carriage reading a book. I didn't expect that he looked like this in her eyes, with very focused eyes. When Shen Shuwei was serious about painting, it was hard to find that there was an extra person in the room, and he was a man who knew martial arts. Xiao Jinyan did not rush to call her this time, but stood behind her without saying a word, watching her draw. Her hand holding the pen scribbling and painting was completely different from using a brush to draw pictures. Her paintings are more interesting than the paintings written by famous artists, and they are close to real people. Shen Chu drew for a while and felt her wrists were a little sore. She stopped and suddenly smelled a smell of alcohol. She raised her head in confusion and saw Xiao Jinyan's slender figure standing behind her. She was stunned for a moment. Why doesn't His Highness make any sound when he walks? Xiao Jinyan said, you are taking painting too seriously. Shen Shuwei denied it in a low voice. His Highness obviously did not let the concubine find out on purpose. Xiao Jinyan was non-committal. Probably because he was drunk, he stretched out his arms and easily picked up Shen Shuwei, then sat down and let her sit on him. Shen Chu was slightly startled. What did Xiao Jinyan want to do? Xiao Jinyan was fast and held him firmly. The closer the distance, the stronger the smell of alcohol, indicating that a lot of alcohol was consumed. Shen Chu turned around slightly and looked at him with a puzzled expression. Your Highness, you have been drinking. Xiao Jinyan kissed her rosy cheek and said, well, I drank some, but I'm not drunk. Shen Chu felt his cheeks heat up slightly. Why are you drinking, Your Highness? It's nothing. Xiao Jinyan looked at the drawing board in her hand, with some expectation in his eyes. I want to see how you draw me. Shen Shuwei looked away and looked at the drawing board. The facial features of the characters in the painting had been completed, and he couldn't deny it even if he wanted to. She explained, Your Highness, this is a sketch. It takes a lot of time to draw. Xiao Jinyan said warmly next to her ear, then draw some first and let me have a look. Okay. Shen Shuwei didn't refuse, holding a drawing board in one hand and a pen in the other, and continued to draw hair seriously. Xiao Jinyan looked at the painting of her own hair. Her long ink-colored hair was scattered all over the floor, in stark contrast to the snow-white mink velvet blanket. He asked doubtfully, is my hair so long? Shen Chu nodded slightly. Of course, His Highness is sitting in a carriage, and his waist-length hair will definitely be touching the blanket. Xiao Jinyan looked away, looked at Shen Shuwei's hair, and reached out to pick up a strand. It was soft and smooth, making people fall in love with it. Xiaoju's hair is also waist-length. Shen Chu said slightly, compared with His Highness, My concubine's hair is one section shorter. Yes, with your height. Xiao Jinyan seemed to have thought of something, but unfortunately the mark was in Xiun Pavilion. I don't know how much you've grown in the past 10 months. I guess I haven't grown much. Shen Shuwei has no pursuit of height. No matter how tall or short she is, it doesn't affect her ability to cook. Xiao Jinyan actually had a lot to say, and it was Xiaoju who finally blurted it out. Shen Shuwei put the drawing board and pen back on the desk, turned to look at Xiao Jinyan. Your Highness, are you resting? Xiao Jinyan nodded, yeah. Shen Chu slightly wanted to come down, but Xiao Jinyan picked her up and strode to the bed. He put her on the bed and undressed her personally. Shen Chu's cheeks blushed slightly and she watched him take off his clothes, put down the bed curtains, lifted the quilt and got in, hugged her into his arms, lowered his head and kissed her. This whole set of movements is done smoothly, as if it is done every day. It is skillful and experienced. After the kiss, before Shen Shuwei could stop him, Xiao Jinyan hugged her into his arms and kissed her hair. Go to sleep. Shen Chu was stunned for a moment and was forced to nestle in his arms, whispering, Good night, Your Highness. Xiao Jinyan murmured in a low voice, Xiaju, good night. Shen Chu was stunned for a moment. She remembered saying good night to Xiao Jinyan, which meant I like you. Didn't Xiao Jinyan know that? After a long time, Shen Shuwei fell asleep with doubts. She had a dream, a very long dream. In the dream, the man was screaming desperately again, Xiaju, come back quickly. Little master, get up quickly, the sun is shining on your butt. Shen Shuwei opened his eyes with difficulty amid Chengxi's chirping. Although his eyes were open, he was not completely awake yet. Shen Shuwei said the phrase sunbathing your butt in the sun, and Chengxi quickly learned it. As long as she slept in, Chengxi would call her that, even if it was rainy that day. Shen Chu rubbed his eyes slightly and asked, His Highness is gone. Chengxi said, I left early. Oh, Shen Chu slowly lifted the quilt and raised her head to look at Chun 11, do you know what good night means? Chengxi shook her head, I don't know. Shen Shuwei asked again, are there any fried dough sticks for breakfast today? Chengxi thought that she couldn't keep up with her little master's brain circuit. She was saying good night just now, but why did she say fried dough sticks the next second? My lord, there are no fried dough sticks, but there are spring rolls. Shen Chu frowned slightly, the spring rolls are not bad either. The night before the crown princess was enthroned, the East Palace and even the entire palace were very lively, and the etiquette department was busy preparing for the ceremony of the crown princess. Shen Shuwei was idle, thinking that after so long, he should be able to take action. Chengxi, call concubine Su over. Okay, Chengxi thought that her mistress was unhappy. After all, His Highness was going to marry the crown princess. She was the official wife, and she could be said to be in the same heaven and earth as her concubine. Chengxi quickly called concubine Su. Obviously, concubine Su was also in a bad mood, and she tossed the handkerchief frequently. Shen Liangdi, tomorrow is the ceremony for the appointment of the crown princess. Chang Liangdi will be the crown princess from now on. I don't want to be reconciled just thinking about it, concubine Su said angrily. Shen Shuwei put down the melon seeds in his hand and said, then let's find something to do to relax. Concubine Su was having nothing to do. When she heard that there was something to do, she became interested. What is it? Shen Shuwei leaned close to concubine Su's ear and said, you asked Dr. Zhao to come over and check my pulse. He said that my menstruation was delayed by a month. I always like to eat sour foods and am sleepy. Is it because I'm lucky? Concubine Su patted her thigh, as if she had discovered something interesting. I have been so depressed these past few days that I almost forgot about this. I will ask Caixia to ask that Imperial Dr. Zhao now. Concubine Su turned around and told Caixia to tell Caixia exactly what Shen Shuwei said. Kexia responded and turned around and trotted out. I came to the Taiyuan hospital several times and quickly found Dr. Zhao. She smiled and said, Dr. Zhao, you are really a god. Dr. Zhao hurriedly asked, did something happen to concubine Su? Kexia said, the last prescription my mistress asked for was for Shen Liangdi. Now Shen Liangdi's menstruation has been delayed for a month, and she is feeling nauseous and lethargic again. She suspects that she is in love. Dr. Zhao, hurry over and have a look. Good night, babies. Acting coquettishly and cute, please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes, Beazai. Also updated during the day. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 228. Anyone who hears these symptoms will suspect that they are pregnant, especially the women in the palace, who want to win favor and become more famous by having children. Zhao Yu, the imperial physician, is not surprised, but he knows that this is probably because of the medicine. Miss Kexia, wait a minute, I'll pack up and go over. Then please hurry up, I'll go back and report. Kexia walked out of the imperial hospital happily. Zhao Yu packed up the medicine box, thought for a moment, and then quickly followed. My lady, Zhao Yu is here. The two people who were drinking tea and chatting stopped talking immediately when they heard that Zhao Yu was here. Shen Chuwei took out a small handkerchief and covered it with dry heaves. She felt that her acting skills, if nothing else, were definitely better than those of a minor role. Concubine Su was so anxious, Shen Liangdi, do you want to vomit again? Concubine Su's acting skills were not only good at talking back at people, but also very good at acting. When Zhao Yu came, he saw this scene. Concubine Su pretended to have just seen Imperial Physician Zhao and waved to him, Imperial Physician Zhao, come and check Shen Liangdi's pulse. Imperial Physician Zhao took 2 steps forward and bowed, I will check Shen Liangdi's pulse right now. He then put down the medicine box, opened it, took out the diagnosis pad from it and placed it on the round table. Shen Liangdi, stretch out your hand. Shen Chuwei nodded, put her hand on the diagnosis pad, and rolled up a small section of her slender wrist. Imperial Physician Zhao took out a silk handkerchief and placed it on that section of her wrist, and then checked her pulse. The whole process was very cautious. Shen Chuwei turned to Chengzi and said, prepare some sour oranges, I want to eat them. Concubine Su smiled and said, Shen Liangdi, if she is really pregnant, I heard that sour boys and spicy girls are good, this may be a boy, which means your highness's eldest son. Concubine Su was famous for her words, and Imperial Physician Zhao had heard about it, so he was not surprised why she said this. Shen Chuwei held up her handkerchief to hide her smile, and said coquettishly, don't talk nonsense, listen to what the Imperial Physician says first. Shen Chuwei's reaction of laughing secretly was seen by Imperial Physician Zhao as happy. Anyone would be vainly happy when they think they are pregnant. Concubine Su saw Imperial Physician Zhao retract his hand and asked, Imperial Physician Zhao, how is it? Are you pregnant? Shen Chuwei also looked at Imperial Physician Zhao with expectation. Imperial Physician Zhao retracted his handkerchief, looked up at Shen Liangdi and Concubine Su, and saw their expectant faces, and he replied respectfully, Shen Liangdi is indeed pregnant. Really? Concubine Su slapped her thigh happily. Shen Chuwei looked at Concubine Su slapping her thigh, and didn't know where she learned it from. I said the recipe for seeking a child is useful. You see, I didn't get pregnant after so many times of serving the emperor in bed, but I got pregnant this time after using the recipe for seeking a child. After saying this, Concubine Su looked at Imperial Physician Zhao again, with a happy face, Imperial Physician Zhao, your recipe for seeking a child is really useful. Shen Chuwei said, there is a reward. Chengzi took out a certain amount of gold from her arms and gave it to Imperial Physician Zhao. Imperial Physician Zhao was stunned for a moment, thinking that Shen Liangdi and concubine Su were really stupid. He reached out to take the gold and bowed to thank him. Shen Shuwei looked at the deposit of gold and felt a little painful. Thinking that she would be back soon, she felt relieved again. Imperial Physician Zhao is so good at medicine, so let Imperial Physician Zhao take care of the pregnancy in the future. Imperial Physician Zhao agreed and was about to leave while packing up his medicine box. Shen Shuwei called him again. Imperial Physician Zhao, you said I am retching and wanting to vomit now, is there any prescription that can relieve it? It's too uncomfortable. Imperial Physician Zhao paused and said, there is a prescription you can try. He then took out a pen and paper and wrote a prescription and handed it to Chengzi. After Imperial Physician Zhao left, Shen Shuwei compared the prescription for seeking a child with the previous prescription, and the handwriting was the same. Looking at the prescription again, it was actually a prescription for inducing menstruation. Concubine Su came over and looked at the prescription and couldn't understand it, so she asked Shen Shuwei, Shen Liangdi, what is this prescription? Shen Shuwei said, a prescription for inducing menstruation. I understand. Now that you know you are pregnant, you must have informed His Highness as soon as possible, and now I'm giving you a prescription for inducing menstruation, so that I can expose you. Then concubine Su couldn't help but feel a chill on her back. Shen Shuwei raised his head and ordered, Chengzi, go tell His Highness that Zhao Yi took my pulse and said I'm pregnant. I'll go right away. Chengzi took the order and ran out of the Hehuan Palace and ran into the next bedroom like a gust of wind. Zhao Yi didn't go far after he came out. He hid behind the corner and saw Chengzi running all the way into the prince's bedroom. He was so anxious to tell His Highness about the pregnancy. It was obvious that she was too vain. Zhao Yi turned and left the East Palace, passing by Zinlan Palace and walked in when no one was around. Chang Liangdi was trying on the crown princess's dress, which was bright red, a color that only the wife could wear. The dress was gorgeous and luxurious, and it was not something that a concubine could wear on weekdays. When she thought that she could wear this dress tomorrow and become the crown princess, Xiao Jinyan's wife, and the future queen, she unconsciously showed a proud smile at the corner of her lips. Huaixiang came in to report, my lady, the imperial physician Zhao is here. When Chang Liangdi heard the imperial physician Zhao, she raised her lips again, let him in. Yes. Huaixiang turned and left. The imperial physician Zhao came in and bowed, Chang Liangdi. Chang Liangdi stroked her dress with one hand and looked up at the imperial physician Zhao, is there any news? The imperial physician Zhao said, Chang Liangdi, concubine Su asked for the recipe for a child not for herself, but for Shen Liangdi. Shen Liangdi, Chang Liangdi snorted coldly, I didn't realize that concubine Su was so loyal to Shen Liangdi, what's the result? Shen Liangdi developed symptoms of yuxi after taking the prescription. Wei Chen just checked her pulse and told her that she was suffering from yuxi. Dr. Zhao reported truthfully. Chang Liangdi originally wanted to bring down concubine Su by begging for a son, but unexpectedly, it was used on Shen Liangdi by mistake, which was exactly what she wanted. His Highness loves Shen Liangdi. He has been sleeping with her for so long and there has been no news. He must be very anxious. If you say you are happy now, you will definitely not doubt her. Chang Liangdi said quietly, this matter is done, and your glory and wealth are indispensable. Thank you, Chang Liangdi. Dr. Zhao changed his words again, it was the promotion of the crown princess. Chang Liangdi's eyebrows were filled with pride when she heard the word princess. She said, be careful, others will find out. Imperial Dr. Zhao responded and returned to Tai Hospital. Chang Liangdi looked down at the dress and couldn't wait to put it on. The appointment of the crown princess was already a certainty, and now she was suddenly looking forward to the tragic situation after Shen Liangdi's fake pregnancy was discovered. Even if you try to seduce Xiao Jinyan again to fight for favor and please the queen, I will be disgusted with you. Chang Liangdi took a sip of tea, thinking that His Highness would be very happy to go to Hehuan Hall to visit Shen Shuwei. Huaixiang, get ready, I'm going to Hehuan Hall. Asterisk. After reporting the good news of spring, Xiao Jinyan hurried to Hehuan Hall. As soon as he walked out of the palace, he met Chang Liangdi, who had just arrived. Chang Liangdi stepped forward to bless her body, with a gentle smile on her face. Your Highness, where do you want to go in such a hurry? When Xiao Jinyan saw Chang Liangdi, his voice was lukewarm. I want to go to Hehuan Hall. Good afternoon, kids. Acting like a coquettish girl, please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 229. Chang Liangdi had long guessed that Xiao Jinyan was in a hurry to go to Hehuan Palace because she heard the news that Shen Shuwei was pregnant. She smiled slightly. I am also thinking about going to Hehuan Palace. Would you like to go with your highness? Xiao Jinyan looked at her smug look. His eyes were cold and emotionless. It was just because of his uncle's face that some words could not be said, and it could not be too much. His voice was still neither cold nor hot. Tomorrow is your enthronement ceremony, you'd better prepare well, so as not to make mistakes tomorrow and make people laugh at you. In fact, Xiao Jinyan really wanted to make mistakes tomorrow and cancel the enthronement ceremony of the crown princess. Chang Liangdi was stunned for a moment, thinking that tomorrow was the enthronement ceremony. It was better to prepare well. It was just that Xiao Jinyan said so, and it was inevitable that she was embarrassed. I understand. Xiao Jinyan retracted his gaze and strode towards Hehuan Palace. He disappeared in a short while. Chang Liangdi stood there, watching Xiao Jinyan's figure disappear around the corner. It was naturally sad to be ignored by her lover. But thinking that she would be the crown princess tomorrow, what if she didn't like him? She sneered in her heart again. Xiao Jinyan, do you really think Shen Shuwei is happy? In the end, it's just an empty joy. And the child I gave birth to is the eldest son, no one can compare. Shen Shuwei is even less worthy. Chang Liangdi retracted her gaze, flicked her handkerchief, and proudly returned to Xinlan Hall. Hehuan Hall. When Xiao Jinyan came, Shen Shuwei was eating oranges, picked from the backyard of Xiun Pavilion, especially fresh. Seeing Xiao Jinyan coming, she hurriedly put down the orange in her hand and stood up to greet him. Your Highness. Concubine Su had just stuffed a slice of orange into her mouth, and when she saw Xiao Jinyan coming, she hurriedly spit it out and stood up to greet him. Your Highness. Xiao Jinyan saw Concubine Su was also there. Everyone get up. Thank you, Your Highness. Xiao Jinyan came to sit on the chair and saw a pile of orange peels on the table. He frowned and looked up at Shen Shuwei and asked, what did Imperial Physician Zhao say? After checking my pulse, Imperial Physician Zhao said that I am pregnant, Shen Shuwei said, taking out the prescription written by Imperial Physician Zhao and showing it to Xiao Jinyan. Your Highness, look, just now I said I was retching and uncomfortable, and he prescribed the prescription, which is actually a prescription to induce menstruation. Xiao Jinyan knew whether Shen Shuwei was pregnant or not. Since Shen Shuwei had her period, she had never had sex, so how could she have a pregnancy pulse? If a dignified imperial physician can't even tell a simple pregnancy pulse, he is not worthy of the position of doctor. Xiao Jinyan took a prescription in one hand and glanced at the handwriting on it. It was from the same person. It also made him more certain that Imperial Physician Zhao wanted to frame not only Concubine Su, but also Xiaoju. Concubine Su looked at the scene in front of her in shock. She only now realized that His Highness knew the recipe for having a child. She was almost scared to death just now. But now it seems that His Highness is not angry. Xiao Jinyan raised her eyes and looked at Concubine Su. Concubine Su lowered her eyes in fear. Xiao Jinyan did not say anything, because as Xiao Ju said, Concubine Su did not mean to harm her. Now it is almost certain that there is something wrong with this imperial physician Zhao, and there must be someone behind the scenes who instructed him. Concubine Su knew from Xiao Jinyan's attitude that Xiao Jinyan would take care of this matter. She asked impatiently, "Your Highness, are you going to arrest someone now?" Xiao Jinyan said lightly, "It's not the time yet." I know Concubine Su did not dare to ask more. At dinner, Xiao Jinyan asked someone to invite Imperial Physician Zhao to come over and check Shen Chuwei's pulse again. Lu 11 invited Imperial Physician Zhao. Zhao Yuyi was preparing medicine. When he learned that His Highness wanted him to check the pulse of Shen Liangdi, he was startled. Lu 11 smiled and said, "Zhao Yuyi, Shen Liangdi is pregnant, His Highness is happy, but he is also worried that Shen Liangdi's fatigue these 2 days will affect the fetus." Having worked in the Imperial Hospital for a year, Zhao Yuyi could still understand what Lu 11 meant. It was just that His Highness was afraid of something happening because he had been sleeping with Shen Liangdi these 2 days. "I'll go right over." Zhao Yuyi packed up the herbs on hand, carried the medicine box and hurriedly followed Lu 11 to the Hehuan Palace. At this time, Shen Chuwei was lying on the bed, looking at Xiao Jinyan who was sitting beside the bed, and found that he had been staring at her for 5 minutes, as if he wanted to see a flower before he stopped. She couldn't bear Xiao Jinyan's focused eyes, and couldn't help asking, "Your Highness, is there something dirty on my face?" Xiao Jinyan shook her head, "No." Shen Chuwei's beautiful eyes were full of doubts, "Then why do you keep staring at me?" Lu 11 hurried in to report, "Your Highness, Zhao Yuyi is here." Xiao Jinyan looked up at Lu 11, and saw Zhao Yuyi coming in with a medicine box. He looked a little unfamiliar, about 30 years old. Zhao Yuyi put down the medicine box and knelt down to salute, "Your Highness, I wish you good health." Xiao Jinyan said, "Get up, first take a good look at Shen Liangdi, is there anything wrong?" "I will take Shen Liangdi's pulse now." Zhao Yuyi stood up and came to the bedside. This was the second time he took Shen Liangdi's pulse. He took out the props and silk handkerchief with ease. Xiao Jinyan sat by the bed and watched, which made Zhao Yuyi feel under great pressure. Shen Chuwei glanced at Zhao Yuyi, and found nothing to be found in the pulse diagnosis. She looked at Xiao Jinyan again and found that he was very serious at this moment. Xiao Jinyan waited for Zhao Yuyi to withdraw his hand, and asked knowingly, "How is it? Is the fetus stable?" Zhao Yuyi lowered his eyebrows and nodded, "Your Highness, Shen Liangdi is in good health, and the fetus is stable, there is no problem." Xiao Jinyan's voice became colder, "Really? You didn't make a mistake?" Cold sweat began to appear on Zhao's forehead, and he didn't dare to raise his hand to wipe it. He just repeated what he had just said, "Your Highness, I didn't make a mistake. Shen Liangdi is in good health and the fetus is stable." Xiao Jinyan said coldly, "Then why do I feel uneasy? You know that Shen Liangdi's pregnancy is my first child. If there is any mistake, you can't bear it." Zhao's imperial physician felt a chill on his back, and even his voice trembled, "Your Highness, I know, I will re-diagnose Shen Liangdi's pulse." Xiao Jinyan, "No need." Zhao's imperial physician secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He almost thought that Your Highness had noticed something, which scared him to death. Shen Chuwei really admired Xiao Jinyan. His acting skills were much better than theirs, and it could be said that there was no leakage. She and Concubine Su couldn't hold back several times, and they used the energy of chatting to resolve the possibility of being exposed. Xiao Jinyan ordered, "Lu 11, go and ask Imperial Physician Wen to come over and check Shen Liangdi's pulse." Yes, Lu 11 took the order and turned around and walked out. When Zhao Yuyi heard that he was going to ask for Imperial Physician Wen, he was so scared that his legs became weak. Thinking that Imperial Physician Wen was not in the Imperial Hospital today, he felt a little relieved. As long as he could get through today, he would be fine. Zhao Yi comforted himself in his heart. Lu 11 went to the Imperial Hospital for a walk, but did not see Imperial Physician Wen. After asking, he found out that Imperial Physician Wen had left the palace today. Good evening, my dears. Acting cute and asking for votes. There are more updates. Asking the question about the treasures mentioned by the master, the young master did not reply to the master and said, "Oh. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 230. Lu 11 knew that His Highness trusted Dr. Wen the most, so he specifically asked Dr. Wen to come and diagnose his pulse. It's just that Dr. Wen is not in Tai Hospital. Just when Lu 11 was debating whether to hire another Imperial Doctor Wen walked in from outside carrying a medical box. Lu 11 almost cried with joy. "Yi Wen, you are finally back. The Xie family is looking for you." Dr. Wen was startled by Lu 11's look on the verge of tears of joy. "Does eunuch Lu have anything to do with me?" Lu 11 was a little anxious. "Let's talk while walking." Seeing that Lu 11 was in such a hurry, Dr. Wen didn't waste any time. He picked up the medicine box again and followed Lu 11 out of the Tai hospital. Lu 11 roughly told what happened on the way. Dr. Wen also understood, but he didn't expect that the prescription for seeking a child would be used on Shen Liangdi. At this time Hehuan Hall. Imperial Dr. Zhao stood aside uneasily, with cold sweat on his back and palms. Xiao Jinyan waited for a while, and when he saw that Lu 11 didn't reply for a long time, he frowned and said, "Come on, let's go to the Imperial Hospital to have a look." Chengzi responded and trotted out. Just after running out of Hehuan Hall, she saw Lu 11 and Wen Yi approaching from a distance. She ran over quickly, with her short legs like rabbits. "Why are you here? Your Highness is already anxious." Lu 11 and Dr. Wen looked at each other and hurriedly walked in. Chengzi ran ahead. Before anyone entered the room, the voice came first, "Dr. Wen is here." When Dr. Zhao heard that Dr. Wen was coming, his legs went weak and he almost fell to the ground. "Didn't Dr. Wen leave the palace? Why are you in Tai Hospital?" Lu 11 bowed and said, "Your Highness, when I went to the Taiyuan Hospital, Dr. Wen happened to come back from the palace." Imperial Physician Wen stepped forward and saluted, "Your Highness, may you be blessed and safe." Xiao Jinyan said, "Please give Shen Liangdi a safe pulse and see if there is any problem." "Wei Chen obeys your order." Dr. Wen stepped forward to open the medical kit, took out the medical pad and placed it on the bed. Shen Chuwei consciously stretched out his hand without putting down his sleeves. He had been waiting for this moment. Dr. Wen took out a clean silk handkerchief and put it on Shen Chuwei's wrist, stretched out 2 fingers and began to diagnose the pulse carefully. Imperial Dr. Zhao felt extremely guilty, and the cold sweat on his forehead was like rain, and it didn't stop when Imperial Dr. Wen came. Shen Chuwei has had his pulse checked n times today and is already a little numb. After Dr. Wen took back his hand, Xiao Jinyan asked, "How?" Dr. Wen Yu said, "Your Highness, Shen Liangdi is in good health and there is no serious problem." Xiao Jinyan asked again, "What about the fetus?" Royal Dr. Wen looked surprised, "Your Highness, Shen Liangdi has no joy pulse, how could she have a fetus?" Xiao Jinyan glanced coldly at Dr. Zhao. Dr. Zhao was extremely guilty at this time, but he just held on and did not fall down. Dr. Zhao said that Shen Liangdi has a happy pulse. Upon hearing this, Imperial Physician Wen looked at Imperial Physician Zhao in confusion. "Physician Zhao, Shen Liangdi clearly has no happy pulse. Where did your happy pulse come from?" Xiao Jinyan looked at Imperial Dr. Zhao with a disappointed look on his face and yelled angrily, "Dr. Zhao, why is this?" Imperial Dr. Zhao's legs went weak, and finally he couldn't bear it anymore. He knelt on the ground with a plop, and said tremblingly, "Your Highness, Shen Liangdi does not have a happy pulse." Shen Shuwei thought that she would have to do a full set of performances, and she, as a friendly star, should also try her best. As if she had just come to her senses, she made an aggrieved accusation, "Dr. Zhao, you clearly said that I was happy, how could it be that I was not happy? Aren't you just making me happy for nothing?" After saying that, she looked at Xiao Jinyan again, grabbed his sleeve, and felt extremely wronged. "Your Highness, I thought I was really happy, so I happily told your Highness, but I didn't expect that Dr. Zhao actually deceived me. Concubine, if you don't know, you would think that I am deceiving your Highness." Xiao Jinyan lowered his eyes and looked at the hand holding his sleeve, then reached out to hold her hand. "Don't worry, I will uphold justice for you. Chengzi. Although it's fake, I feel so sorry for you. Ying Ying. Lu 11. The slave almost believed it. Dr. Wen. I didn't realize that His Highness has the talent for acting. Xiao Jinyan turned to look at Imperial Dr. Zhao and asked coldly, "Then why do you say Shen Liangdi has a happy pulse? And why does she have symptoms of a happy pulse?" Dr. Zhao was lying on the ground, trembling and unable to say a word. Seeing that Imperial Dr. Zhao was silent, Shen Shuwei had no choice but to continue, "Your Highness, I have the symptoms of Yuxi because I used the prescription for seeking a child that Imperial Dr. Zhao gave me. The prescription for seeking a child was given by concubine Su to Imperial Dr. Zhao Cum. Then he took out 2 prescriptions and gave them to Xiao Jinyan. Xiao Jinyan had already read it and handed it directly to Dr. Wen, "Take a look and see if there's anything wrong with it." Dr. Wen took the prescription and looked at it carefully one by one. And explained, "Your Highness, this is not a prescription for seeking a child, it is a prescription that can create symptoms of false pregnancy, and the other one is a prescription to induce menstruation." Xiao Jinyan ordered, "Go and invite concubine Su over." "My slave, I obey." Chengzi took the order and ran out quickly, then came to Yuxiang Palace in one breath and asked concubine Su to testify against Imperial Dr. Zhao. As soon as concubine Su heard the accusation against Imperial Dr. Zhao, she immediately became energetic. She had been waiting for this moment and hurried to Hehuan Hall, waving her handkerchief. Chengzi looked at how often concubine Su shook her handkerchief. It wasn't that she was in a bad mood this time, but that she was too excited. Concubine Su strode in with as much momentum as on the battlefield. She came in waving a small handkerchief, and first blessed her body, "Your Highness, may you be blessed and safe." Xiao Jinyan said, "Get up." "Thank you, Your Highness." Concubine Su stood up straight. Lu 11 roughly recounted what happened. Concubine Su shouted, "Your Highness is innocent, I didn't know anything about it." After saying that, she turned her head and asked, "Imperial Physician Zhao, you clearly said that it was a prescription for seeking a child, and you also diagnosed Shen Liangdi and said that she was pregnant. What is your intention in doing this?" Xiao Jinyan's voice was cold. "Imperial Physician Zhao, now there are witnesses and evidence, what else do you have to say?" In the face of evidence, Imperial Physician Zhao couldn't say a word of defense or rebuttal. He trembled and crawled on the ground. "Your humble servant, it was your humble servant who did it." Xiao Jinyan said coldly, "I don't believe that you did it alone. You have no grudges with concubine Su and Shen Liangdi. How could you think of such a vicious way to harm people? Who is the mastermind behind the scenes?" Imperial Physician Zhao hesitated for a long time and decided to take all the blame. "It was your humble servant who did it alone, and it has nothing to do with others." Xiao Jinyan's eyes flashed with sarcasm. "Do you think that if you don't say it, I can't find it?" Imperial Physician Zhao was trembling with fear. He couldn't say it. What if he implicated his family? Seeing that Zhao Imperial Physician didn't say anything, Xiao Jinyan ordered in a cold voice, "Lu 11, go check Zhao Imperial Physician." "Yes." Lu 11 quickly withdrew after receiving the order. Xiao Jinyan glanced at Zhao Imperial Physician on the ground, detained Zhao Imperial Physician and keep him under strict supervision. Wei Qi strode in, took off Zhao Imperial Physician's clothes, and kept an eye on him. Things were almost handled. Concubine Su and Imperial Physician Wen also went back. Xiao Jinyan sat by the bed and had no intention of leaving, even though tomorrow was the big day for the crown princess to be appointed. There are more updates.